I'm gonna be fully honest with you, I don't even know the reason why I want to explain all of this to you. I just feel like I want to get a couple of things straight because so many of you always ask me, Thorn, do you do quadrobics? How do you do quadrobics? Do you have any tips for me on how to do quadrobics? And I'm just kind of like, I don't do quadrobics. Hi guys, welcome back to my Therian territory. You may call me Thorn. In today's video I want to talk about quadrobics, but kind of like my personal relation towards quadrobics and why I don't personally do quadrobics. Quadrobics is like a massive topic within the Therian community, especially since the past couple of years, and this is of course mainly because there's a whole site in the community who have started this like trend going around where they do quadrobics and make videos about it. I'm just gonna give a massive disclaimer, which I'm going to be doing every single time I'm gonna mention quadrobics on my channel in general, which is the fact that being a Therian does not mean that you have to do quadrobics, and doing quadrobics does not make you a Therian. Quadrobics is very simply a hobby and nothing more, and doing quadrobics for some Therians is a way to express their personal self, but definitely not to everybody. And another message that I wanted to say is that I personally have absolutely no issues with people doing quadrobics and simply expressing themselves for who they are or relieving some species dysphoria through quadrobics and stuff. So I just want to get that out of the way. I'm not a quadrobics hater or anything. The only issue I have with something that is related to quadrobics is the fact that the platform where a lot of quadrobics videos are being posted is incredibly misinformed about Therianthropy. A lot of people on TikTok, where a lot of quadrobics videos are being posted, of course, tend to jump into Therianthropy thinking that it has to do everything with quadrobics, but it's not at all related to one another. That's the whole issue. That's literally the only part that I'm a little iffy about, but that's rather about people not being informed and jumping into conclusions and jumping into identities rather than actually doing quadrobics and stuff. Like, that's cool. You can totally do quadrobics if you want. And like I said before, it's just one side within the community where a lot of misinformation is being spread that a lot of people in the Therian community also want to do distance from, because they just feel like it doesn't represent their community very well at all. So they kind of feel like they want to like give it a different name, give it a different space. Quadrobics has always been a way to express oneself as a Therian, but I must admit that it has blown up ever since that the TikTok platform has been created in general. But it's still important to know that before the trend was ever created, within the Therian community, people barely ever talked about quadrobics. Yes, it was a way to express oneself and to relieve some species dysphoria, for example, but it was rarely ever discussed as an actual thing. It wasn't a trend. People rarely ever filmed themselves doing it or anything alike. It's really a new thing. Now, to set the topic of the trend aside for a second, let's start looking at what my personal experiences with quadrobics, etc. I remember very distinctly as a kid that I wanted to do quadrobics pretty badly because there was this friend of mine who is still a really good friend of mine, by the way. She used to be able to do quadrobics really well. She tried to teach me to do quadrobics on trampoline and stuff, but I was terrible at it. I liked doing it. It was really fun, and even on the trampoline, like mostly on a trampoline, it actually felt really great. However, there was always something a little the matter with me trying to do quadrobics. And before I say what that issue was, I'd like to state very clearly that quadrobics is a pretty heavy sport. Because no matter how you put it, our human bodies simply aren't made to do quadrobics, to walk on all fours or even run on all fours, to jump. A lot of beginning quadrobists always say, like, why do my wrists hurt so much? Well, it's because our wrists aren't made to support our entire body. As humans, we have very strong legs because we are able to keep ourselves upright. Our balance is amazing compared to other animals in the animal kingdom. And therefore, our legs have also evolved to become longer. And therefore, when we try to walk on our fours, of course, our butt sticks right up because our legs are way too long. And as you can tell, our arms just simply aren't made to walk anymore. If anything, actually, we're rather made to climb than actually walk on our fours because we descend from apes, and apes do climb. So even behind my personal reasoning why I cannot do quadrobics, it is still very important to know that a lot of people simply cannot do quadrobics because their bodies just aren't made for it, and they don't have the time or the physique to be able to train their bodies to be able to do quadrobics. And now I want to shed a light on my personal reasoning, which is simply the fact that I am disabled. I don't generally call myself disabled because in a daily basis I don't suffer from this disability too much, but it's with heavier heavier sports such as quadrobics that my disability really comes forth. And my disability is basically just that my knees are fucking terrible. In the past, my doctor had actually diagnosed me with patellofemoral pain syndrome, which is a general pain syndrome around the knees where they hurt all the time basically, they crack a lot, and even the kneecap has a tendency to like lock in a wrong place for a very long time, which is painful, I can tell you. I've had this happen to me like 4 times, 2 of which were pretty serious. Like I actually had to go to the doctor to get it fixed and get it back in position. I have to say, however, that patellofemoral pain syndrome is generally seen as a temporary condition that you can get rid of when you train a lot. I cannot say for sure that my specific condition is still patellofemoral pain syndrome because it doesn't seem to be temporary. Like I've had it since like the end of my childhood basically, so yeah, I'm not sure if I can still call it that. Like the diagnosis had been given when I was like 15 and I'm 23 now, so. But regardless of that, my general conclusion is that my knees are very, very terrible. This is pretty much the main reason why I don't personally do quadrobics, because it hurts. But to be honest, this is also just one factor as to why I don't do quadrobics, because there's more to it, definitely. Even if I did not have this disability, I would know that my physique would still not be able to do quadrobics because my body just isn't made for it, especially given that I'm not the lightest person in the world. Definitely kudos to people who are heavier and still are able to do quadrobics, because I can't. And the last reason, that is also a really, really valid reason as to why one would not do quadrobics, is simply because it gives me species dysphoria. You might be thinking, what? How does that work? Because so many people do quadrobics in order to relieve their species dysphoria. They do it to be able to feel better about themselves and even create species euphoria. Well, for me, and this is possibly also because when I do quadrobics I'm just not at all good at it, I get a lot of species dysphoria when I try to do quadrobics, because it kind of just reminds me that my body isn't made to be like the wolf that I personally identify as. Like, trust me, the species dysphoria is generally also there. Like, I really want to be able to run on all 4s at times, but when I try to with my human body, it's like a constant reminder, like, this is not what your body is supposed to look like. This is not how your body is supposed to be able to move. I can imagine that a lot of Therians actually feel the same way, that doing quadrobics is only a reminder that they're never going to be able to move like their animal selves. I can also imagine that this is definitely a thing that may happen to a lot of older Therians, because older Therians generally do not have the physique to be able to do quadrobics. I want to generally just shed a light on disabled Therians, Therians who don't have the physique to do quadrobics, and older Therians who don't have the physique to do quadrobics. But also generally just Therians who don't want to do quadrobics, who aren't interested in doing quadrobics, because that's just not something that aligns with their experience, and that's just not something that they are interested in. So to the newer Therians who are just peeking around the corner to see if they might identify as a Therian, whether you want to do quadrobics or don't want to do quadrobics or aren't able to do quadrobics, that's completely and totally, utterly valid. Because again, quadrobics simply isn't inherently related to therianthropy. I would love to know what you guys' experience are with doing quadrobics, not doing quadrobics, wanting to do quadrobics but not being able to do quadrobics, or maybe even getting species dysphoria from doing quadrobics. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, please leave a like down below or maybe comment down below. Or if you have any critique, you can also comment down below, of course. And if you really like my videos and want to see more in the future, perhaps consider to subscribe. And I will be seeing you guys in my Therian territory in the next video. Bye. A massive thanks to my Therian territory members Bloody Toomey, Daphne Sten, Shadow the Wolf, Alkura Wintermist, Arden Zephyr, Senji, Thomas, and Waita. Join the Therian territory membership for early access, extra features and content, and more personal contact with me.